Welcome to the next in the series of Jon Builds Stuff. This should be more accurately called Jon Paints Stuff. Today I'm looking at another Sarissa Precision MDF kit, as I have a few, but this one's a little bit different. This is a pre-built kit, one that was used for build testing early on in the phase, before they released it. Sarissa have a stack of these, and periodically it shows they'll have a box out the back and they'll sell them off at a reduced rate. So you might get a kit with some parts missing or that's not quite aligned. But it's an interesting way to get some kits you might want to have a play around with. This is a landing pad, and as you can see, I've got a small section broken off here. This is supposed to come off. Ladder comes off. I've already, if you can see just here, I've already had to fix the ladder. But that's sorted. This seems to be intact. We've then got the main tube here. I'm going to try and stop that door. It's designed so you can have them open or closed, but I'll close that one. And the same, actually, the door there as well needs to be closed because it's just a bit loose at the moment and needs to be sorted out. I don't really want to see the inside. So a few little bits to fix first. So we'll go through those, fix those bits up, then have a go at getting it painted. Now this painting is going to be a little bit different. I can't get to certain parts because it's already assembled. For instance, all the way under here that you can see, I actually can't get into that. I'm just going to try and spray under there as much as possible to give it a coat of paint, whatever base coat I'd use around the edge. The first thing I'm going to do is try and fix these stanchions. I've got one that's completely broken off, another one that's a bit loose that I'm going to try and patch up. Because it's got a very small contact area on the bottom, I'm going to glue a matchstick on there first, trim it off flush to fit, and then also give me a bit of strength in the back here. This one I'm hoping with a bit of super glue and a bit of newspaper either side will just give it a bit of strength that I can sand that off afterwards. That's what I did with the ladders here. You can just see the darker patches. Actually, it's a newspaper that was stuck on when I put it together. When it sands down, that's fine. And when it's painted over, you won't see that at all. And that's nice and strong again now. While those two parts are drying, it's going to work on the door, which I've actually just pushed out by accident. I'm going to put this in and fix it in place. This is where, if you keep all your bits from kits, you get a whole box of loose little extra bits to stick on. All I'm going to do is get a couple of small parts, bit of glue, stick it in, one on this side, when that's dry, all I need to do is stick the door in, and that's sorted. Right, as you can see, this has been glued in with a couple of supports on the back to hold it in place. There's a little bit, see the newspaper and the super glue on there, that's all sticking and holding nicely. End doors glued in, and the other end doors glued in. So the kit is all together. What we want to do now is to add some bits of terrain, little bits of scrap or something around the outside to make this look more like a slightly used in place. And that's just a case of grabbing some bits I've got here, sticking them around the base, and then we go on to spray. Doing on a few bits of, actually that's going to be quite a nice little step. Bits of plastic, some bits of thing here. I've glued those on. I'll let those dry for a couple of minutes, then I'm going to go out and I'm going to paint the base of this a kind of grey colour. So I'm actually going to use a rattle can primer for that. That'll lose a good base. It also means I can hopefully get in under the edges a bit so you don't see the edges quite so much. And it'll prime these bits of plastic quite nicely. Not going to protect the main part of it because if I get any paint on that, doesn't matter. I'm going to paint over this anyway with some acrylic paint very shortly. Quick trip to the spray booth outside because it's an aerosol can, and we've got a nice grey base which has gone, I think you can see, pretty far underneath, which is exactly what I wanted to do. Otherwise I could have just used it by a hand, but also I've got obviously a few little plastic bits here which if you prime them with this means I can then go over with acrylic later. Now the main body is going to be red. I've done a similar building before in a dark red, so I'm going to try and mix up a similar sort of colour and paint that, but I've not used these paints before. I picked these up from a local store. They're labelled Crawford and Black. I've got a few basic colours here. I've not used them before, so this will be interesting to see how this works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the top section, but actually on the underside that you're never going to see, I'm going to test it up on here first, just to make sure I get a bit of decent coverage. So we'll finish the base coat red. It's not bad, it's a bit patchy, but by the time I weathered it, shouldn't notice that. It's all done. Top's done, inside and out as well. Next thing is some black, and black on the railings around here, the ladder, the handle, probably silver on the kind of aerial thing, silver or a very light grey colour. And then I'm going to put some yellow around these blast plate vents that you've got here and here, and on the floor here with yellow, because then when we weather it, that will come in. Right, I want to put a number on the side of this building. I've chosen number 7 at random. All I'm going to do now is to cut this. It's just a bit of paper, and all I'm going to do is cut this out, and that will become my stencil. And I'll show you a little trick in a moment with the masking that makes it nice and quick and easy. As promised, here's a quick tip about masking. As you can see, I've stuck the small template onto the side of the building. I'm then using the bit of paper I cut it out from to go over the top with a little bit of masking tape, top and bottom, cover up the gaps. It just means I've been able to lay the central bit of the stencil has been laid flat, so I get a nice, clear, crisp outline. But I haven't got to worry about too much about masking with bits of newspaper or anything else. I can just use the large bit of paper it came out of. So it's just a nice, quick way of doing things. So that's the spraying complete. I've gone for quite a light shade of yellow. I didn't want to go too dark. This is going to be old and look weathered, so there's no point having a really bright yellow number 7 on the side. And what I'm doing here is using the same red that I used for the side of the building. I'm just using a dry brush, and I'm really working in particular the corners to age this number 7. And once the paint dries, that will just look as if it's been there for a nice long time. So with the weathering here, what I'm looking to do is I've got a darker red, and I just want to get to the centre of each spot. I'm going to see how that goes. I may need to go darker still. Might be sufficient. There's a general rule of thumb in Gary's book that if you work on the interiors, you work out towards the edges and the edges get darker. If you work on exteriors, you work out towards the edges and the edges get lighter. So on that principle, I'm doing dark patches in the centre of each spot. And then I'll go through with a slightly lighter red sort of around the edge of each one. And then I'll do a little bit of edge highlighting right around the edges here, probably with almost something like an orange, almost a bright orange. What I'm doing here is going with an orange. I'm just trying to part stipple, part actually brush with a very, very dry brush, and just highlighting all the panel joins. It's picking up a couple of points. It's quite subtle. It may not show up particularly well in the picture, but there's definitely a bit of an orange bit around the edges, just to give that little bit of extra definition. I'm hoping you can see that in the picture. Right, onto the larger part. So I'm going to do a little bit of grey dry brushing on the black parts, which is the frames around here, and also the ladder here. So starting with the grey, quite a dark grey. Now being gentle with these because, of course, they are somewhat more delicate than the rest of the frame. But just going over with a little bit of grey on that. We'll probably do a couple of coats just to make sure it all shows up and looks suitably battered. Through the magic of speeding up video, I'm just going to do very quickly the railings around the top here and the little handle on the hatch that leads up to the ladder. That's the ladder, the black parts on here done. I have given the aerial just it's a bit over the top of the silver, a bit of a blue wash just to give it a bit of colour. For the base section around the grey, first thing I'm going to do is use a dark ink wash and apply liberally and scruffily to start to get a little bit of darkness and a bit of texture into these sections here. Right, we'll just let that dry. And then what I'm just going to do is go around the base just to make sure that the bottom of the building is tied into the ground. And that bit of dirt around the edge, something that Gary in his book does also recommend. Just get that. This building sits here, it belongs here as part of this mess. So now I'm going to pick up a little bit lighter grey to pick up the edges and the tops of here, tops of things. Here's the finished product. I'm really quite pleased that this one has come out from a kit which was already assembled. I had no choice in how I put it together. I think it's come out quite nicely. That's it for this particular build. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope maybe you learned a little something, and I will see you for the next one.